This is the second video in our series on why great products are not enough to ensure business survival. In this video I'm going to look at Nokia, and in particular its mobile phones. Nokia produced some fantastic phones from the 1980s right up to the early 2000s. They combined functionality, quality, affordability and great design. But in a 7-year period, Nokia moved from undisputed market leader in mobile phones through near bankruptcy to finally exiting the market. How did that happen? Why did that happen? And what can we learn from this story?
Nokia has a history of successful transformation from its start in 1865 as a forestry business. Over the next 150 years, its business encompassed multiple sectors: paper, Wellington boots, tyres, electricity generation, electrical cables, electronics and military equipment. In 1982, Nokia launched its first mobile phone. This was to be the start of a globally successful business for Nokia. By the end of 2005, Nokia was flying high in the global mobile phone market. Its market share had increased to 34% from 32% a year before. Its nearest rivals, Motorola and Samsung, together had less market share. The figures speak for themselves. In 2005, Nokia dominated the global market for mobile phones. By the end of 2006, Nokia's market share growth had continued, and Gartner was reporting that mobile phones were set for another year of strong growth in 2007. As an endnote in their report, Gartner stated that there had been speculation that Apple Computer might introduce a mobile phone in 2007. And indeed, on the 9th of January 2007, Steve Jobs announced the new Apple iPhone for release in June of that year. The iPhone was effectively a disruptive entrant into the mobile phone market, representing a new level of smartphone capability based on software and industrial design competencies. Smartphones were handheld computers with phone capabilities. Nokia had long been a leader in this high-value sector since it launched its communicator range in 1996. However, it had focused its smartphone products on the business market. In contrast, Apple approached this market from a design-led, user-focused, consumer-orientated perspective. Following Apple's entrance into the smartphone market, Google launched its open-source Android operating system in 2008. On the back of Android, new phone makers such as HTC began to become significant rivals to Nokia. At the other end of the value scale, Chinese manufacturer ZTE emerged to become the 5th largest global phone supplier by volume in 2011. Nokia's market share slipped significantly in 2010, and in January 2011, Reuters reported that Google's Android had dethroned Nokia's Symbian as the most popular smartphone platform in the last quarter of 2010, ending a reign that began with the birth of the smartphone 15 years ago. So by 2011, Nokia had found its market share reeling as it faced relentless attack by Apple and Google at the top end of their market, and by Chinese low-cost producers at the low end. The result was falling market share and margins. So in the first quarter of 2011, Apple, RIM, now known as BlackBerry, and HTC together captured 75% of the global mobile phone operating profits. In February 2011, Nokia was forced to publicly accept that it was in a crisis, following a leaked memo from its CEO, Stephen Elop. In the memo, he recognized the major challenges that faced the firm. He also recognized the challenges at the lower end of Nokia's market. That memo prepared the way for the bombshell drop later that week in a Nokia press conference held in London. On Friday the 11th of February 2011, Elop announced that Nokia was dropping its own smartphone operating systems and partnering with Microsoft to use the Windows 7 smartphone operating system. This was truly a bombshell, publicly recognizing that Nokia could no longer compete with its own mobile phone operating systems and resulting in 7,000 Nokia employees to be laid off over 2011 to 2012. Nokia used to be seen as the thought leader in producing mobile phones that provided excellent performance, ergonomics and industrial design, and with a clear user interface. But by 2011, the mantle of thought leader in the mobile phone space was well and truly owned by Apple, with the Android-based handset makers such as HTC and Samsung chasing closely, and Nokia considered by the technical press as not even in the race. How did this happen? How did Nokia fall so far and so quickly? And what can other businesses learn from this story? In the rest of this video, I'm going to examine Nokia's journey from undisputed market leader at the start of 2007 to its market exit in 2014 and identify key lessons to be learned. I'm going to do this by answering 3 key questions about Nokia during this crucial period. Customers buy products and services based on what they consider to be the important value attributes of the product or service and how well they perceive suppliers deliver these value elements in the product or service. Traditionally, mobile phones were selected for value elements such as call quality, ease of use, and handset size and weight. However, smartphones combine mobile phone functionality with that of a mobile computer and therefore offer new value elements. The user requirements for a non-commodity mobile phone, i.e. a smartphone, clearly changed between 2005 and 2011, with the non-phone functionality increasing in relative importance. Smartphone buyers were prepared to trade previously important value elements such as battery life and call quality in return for a slick user experience and access to a large number of software applications, the so-called apps. Nokia's offerings in many of these new value areas were behind those provided by Apple and the Android-based rivals. In essence, these changes in user needs show that user requirements was no longer for a phone with some capabilities as a computer and entertainment device. Instead, it was for a computing and media device that had some phone capabilities. This significant change in requirements played to the strengths of a company like Apple, with its rich competencies and experience in design-led, consumer-focused and computer-based products, and diminished the value of Nokia's telecommunication competencies and more business-led functionality. A key part of the Nokia value proposition was a high variety of phones to cover a wide range of user needs. The result is that Nokia released 27 new phones between 2010 and 11 and a total of 64 between 2009 and 11. This high level of variety required Nokia to dedicate a significant amount of technical and management resource to develop, manufacture and support these multiple hardware and software platforms. In this same period, Apple launched 2 phone models in one format with one operating system. As well as facing competition in high-end smartphones from Apple and Android phones from HTC, Samsung and others, Nokia also faced competition at the lower end of its range from Far Eastern rivals such as ZTE. So Apple was operating a low-volume, high-margin business in the mobile phone market, whilst Nokia was effectively operating a high-volume, low-margin business. There were major differences in strategic focus. In research and development, Nokia invested heavily in R&D, spending an average of 13.8% on R&D between 2005 and 10, in comparison to Apple, which spent less than 4% of revenue on R&D in this period. Because Apple's focus was on technology application rather than research and development. In fact, Apple developed its first iPhone in partnership with Singular Wireless at a reported development cost of only $150 million. Nokia had strong competencies in manufacturing and operated 9 major phone factories worldwide. In contrast, Apple outsourced all of its iPhone manufacturing to Foxconn's factories in China. This had major benefits of freeing up Apple time for focus in other business areas, whilst enabling optimally low production cost. Apple excels at brand management in creating an exciting and consistent message to the market. A major difference between Nokia and Apple was the latter's ability to create a media frenzy with its new product launches introduced personally by Steve Jobs. The result was that Apple was able to establish strong desire in customers for its products. In partnership management, Apple was stunningly successful in applying an open innovation approach to the development of software applications, the so-called apps, for its iPhone. It seized the opportunity provided by the immediate success of its iPhone to build a software marketplace supplied by independent software developers but firmly controlled by Apple, distributed by its iTunes software. These apps increase the functionality and experience of the smartphone to the user and thus its value. By January 2011, 10 billion apps had been downloaded from the Apple Store. In comparison, Nokia's Ovi Store, launched in May 2009, was not in the same league for quality and quantity of applications. So, looking at the business model, it's difficult not to conclude that Nokia's business model was increasingly out of line with the needs of the smartphone market as it developed in this period. The new market demanded elegant, well-designed and user-friendly hardware with customization based on an ecosystem of software apps and hardware accessories. The market had moved away from a high-variety hardware range, which was supposed to offer high choice to consumers. Instead, variety was increasingly achieved by users customizing their smartphones with apps. Developing and maintaining this high variety of hardware required Nokia investment in people and resources, in R&D and manufacturing, instead of marketing, app development, or in support of network providers. Ultimately, the market needs were met more effectively by Apple's software-orientated and open innovation business model than Nokia's hardware-focused and internal innovation one. The development of a new product can be considered as an innovation journey. To examine Nokia's effectiveness at innovation, I'm going to briefly examine the case of their N900 smartphone launched in September 2009 as a major competitor to the iPhone. I'll explore this by considering the 4 key work streams that need to be managed in new product development: technology, users, business value and execution. The Nokia N900 was technically very impressive and functionally ahead of the Apple iPhone in many areas. Pre-sale reviews were very good. However, it was clear from early on that the Nokia N900's effective target market, whether deliberate or not, comprised sophisticated users, the so-called geeks, who valued the technical capabilities of the phone and its open Linux operating system. In comparison, Apple's iPhone targeted the larger market of non-technical users who valued ease of use above technical capabilities. This market saw the N900 as thick, rather brick-like, more complex than the iPhone, with a slow interface at times. And in addition, the N900 had limited apps available. At launch, it had 1,500 apps compared to reported 100,000 in Apple's App Store. Reviews of the N900 confirmed its weaknesses as well as its strengths, limiting its attractiveness and desirability to the mass market. The law of increasing returns also applied for application developers, as the market for their apps was much bigger if they targeted the Apple iPhone market than if they developed it for the Nokia N900 smartphone. It was clear that to be competitive with the iPhone, Nokia needed to address this app weakness, but their poor history of app development with the Ovi Store was not encouraging. And finally, in execution, the Nokia N900's excellent functional specification and enthusiastic early reviews in the technical press resulted in a high level of initial demand when the phone was launched in November 2009. However, early user feedback began to highlight usability issues with the phone, specifically ease of use and some lag in operation. In addition, some functionality was poor or missing, such as video conferencing, only addressed after the third update of the operating system in October 2010, nearly 1 year after the phone's initial release, and by then the damage had already been done to the phone's reputation. Lateness to the market had been a problem for Nokia for a number of years. The company hadn't developed a single new smartphone on time or without major software glitches since 2009, in part because of delays as scores of different hardware teams lobbied to get their pet capability built into Symbian. Overall, Nokia's N900 smartphone was a story of unfulfilled technical promise due to key decisions made in user focus and the value elements offered, and a weak overall execution. It crystallized the inherent issues in Nokia's innovation system and its product development process. The launch of the first Nokia Windows phone, the Lumia 800, in November 2011 initiated a period of consecutive huge quarterly losses as Nokia's market share slipped away. By mid-2012, Nokia almost became bankrupt. Although its market share recovered in 2013, it was not enough to improve its very poor financial situation. So in September 2013, Nokia announced the sale of its mobile and devices division to Microsoft. The sale was completed in April 2014, with Microsoft Mobile becoming the successor to Nokia's mobile services division. So, what can we learn from this story of Nokia's dramatic decline from market leader to market exit within a decade? I think there are 5 main lessons. Number 1, get in the heads of your users. Nokia were often technology-led rather than user-focused in their product development. This led to added functionality, primarily valued by smaller niche users, reducing the ease of use for the handset, and obviously extending development time. Number 2, develop a complete value offering. Nokia had insufficient focus and resourcing in the development of value-added services such as the apps, the so-called ecosystem. Nokia started late in developing its applications market, a year after Apple, and this gave Apple an unassailable lead and created a market with high liquidity for both customers and software developers. Thirdly, first impressions are key. Nokia's development process resulted in products that were often late or incomplete, as illustrated by the N900. With a short market lifetime for smartphones, they have to be right on release or fixed very quickly afterwards. Fourthly, keep focused. Nokia spread management focus and resources over a wide range of handset models and software types at both high and mid price points. This reduced their ability to respond effectively and quickly to external challenges. And lastly, keep listening and keep humble. Successful innovators have strong external links to customers, to users, to partners and to competitors. They become quickly aware of both opportunities and threats. They're grounded and indeed humble enough to recognize that any competitive advantage they may have is likely to be transient. Nokia's stunning success had led it to become too inward-looking and too complacent in the mobile phone space.
Nokia's downfall is a salutary story for business leaders. How a company so dominant in its business sector could move from leading the market to losing the market in less than a decade seems difficult to believe. Certainly Apple was a key disruptor in the mobile phone market, introducing a user-focused, consumer-based product based on a computer paradigm rather than Nokia's radio paradigm. The tsunami of change that this unleashed exposed weaknesses in Nokia's business model, and this combined with Nokia's weakness in executing an effective response led to its rapid demise. There are major lessons to be learned from Nokia's experience, particularly in the importance of focus. Focus on user requirements, and focus on ensuring that the business is aligned with best meeting those requirements. Thank you.